We live in a world of negotiation, of back and forth communication trying to reach agreement. From the moment we get up in the morning, whether we realize it or not, we're negotiating. We're negotiating with our husbands or wives, our children or parents, even with our pets. And then when we get to the office, we start negotiating with our boss, our employees, our secretaries, our colleagues, our peers in other departments. And very importantly, we start to negotiate with our customers, our suppliers, and that's not even to speak of our bankers, our lawyers, our accountants, and even the tax authorities. If you think about how much time you spend negotiating, engaged in the act of back and forth communication, trying to reach agreement on some issue, however small, and think about what percentage of time it is, most people I know, they will give the answer, at least 50% of my time I'm spending negotiating. Some people will say it's 90%. And in today's climate, with all today's changes, that percentage is going up, not down. Negotiation is becoming the single most important skill for a manager in today's world. I'm William Ury. I'm the co-founder of the program on negotiation at Harvard. For the last 20 years, I've served as a negotiation consultant and as a mediator in situations ranging from corporate mergers to strikes in coal mines to wars in the Middle East, Africa, and the former Soviet Union. And I think that the reason why negotiation is becoming so important is because of the knowledge revolution and the changes that that brings in our organizations and in the way in which human beings relate to each other. As organizations go from vertical, hierarchical pyramids and flatten themselves into horizontal networks, there is a revolution that takes place in the way in which people make decisions. From giving orders from top to bottom to negotiating horizontally. If you think about your job nowadays and how you get it done, we are literally dependent nowadays on dozens of individuals and organizations over whom we exercise no direct control. We cannot simply give them orders. We are compelled to negotiate. Think for a moment about the 10 most important decisions that you had to make last year. You're a decision maker. What were the decisions that had the greatest impact on the bottom line, on your profits, on your performance at work, or even on your satisfaction at home? Think about how you had to make those decisions. How many of them could you just make unilaterally, just by yourself? And how many of them did you actually have to reach in consultation with others through some process of shared decision-making? In other words, through negotiation. Most people I know would give the answer, 9 out of 10 I spend negotiating, or 10 out of 10 I negotiate. Negotiation is the preeminent process for making decisions in our business lives, in our personal lives, and in the world of politics. Negotiation is not easy. A lot of people do not actually like to negotiate. And if you ask them why, you often find that it's because they see themselves in a dilemma. Most of the people that we negotiate with, after all, are people that we know, with whom we have an ongoing relationship. They're our customers, they're our partners, they're our colleagues, they're our family members. And we're constantly in a dilemma as to whether or not we should adopt a soft approach or a hard approach. In hard negotiation, we see ourselves essentially as adversaries. The goal is victory, and the standard moves in the game are to take a rigid position, to dig into it, not to make any concessions, to distrust the other side, and to try to win the confrontation. Now, in the soft approach, on the other hand, we see ourselves as colleagues or friends, and the goal is not victory, it's agreement. The standard moves in the game are not to dig into a position, but to be flexible, to make offers, to trust the other side, and to avoid confrontation. Now, it's interesting, my colleagues at at Harvard and I studied a great many negotiators in different domains, from business to law to diplomacy. And we asked ourselves, were they adopting a soft approach or a hard approach? And what we found is that they were adopting neither. They were neither soft nor hard, nor were they just somewhere in between, nor were they saying, I'm just soft with some people and I'm hard with others. Rather, they were adopting a third approach that combined some of the elements of soft with the elements of hard. If they were soft on the people that they were negotiating with. And if they were hard on the problem that needed to be solved. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine once led a business delegation in to meet with the president of Peru. He was a Peruvian businessman. And they went in to discuss the problems that the business community was having. And as the meeting went on, my friend noticed that as the business leaders brought up their problems with the president was getting increasingly defensive and started attacking or counterattacking the points that were being made. So my friend interrupted the meeting and said, look, I'm afraid we may have gotten off on the wrong foot. We came here to acknowledge you, Mr. President, for all the remarkable reforms that you have made to strengthen the economy of our country. And we're here to see if we can help you in the business community continue and advance your reforms. Well, once he had said that, the president relaxed. He began to participate actively in the conversation. The meeting went on 3 times longer than scheduled. And at the end, the president asked the business leaders present to serve in his own administration, in his own government, as the advocates of the business community. That's the advantage of being soft on the people if you need to be hard on the problem. In fact, the harder you need to be on the problem, the more you need to get your interests met, the softer you need to be on the people. Soft on the people, hard on the problem. Now, there are 7 basic principles for negotiating that epitomize this approach of being soft on the people and hard on the problem. The first 2 have to do with the people. The second 3 principles have to do with the problem that you're trying to solve, the opportunity that you're trying to realize. And the last 2 principles have to do with the proposals that are being made. This is the phase that we normally think of as negotiation, when each side is exchanging offers. So you start with the people, that's phase 1. You then move on to the problem, trying to solve the problem, that's phase 2. And then you end up in phase 3 of exchanging proposals. I would like to review those 7 principles with you. And as I do, I think you'll find it valuable if you have in mind at least one difficult negotiation that you may be currently facing. Some situation that's giving you trouble. It may be with a colleague, it may be with a customer. As we go through this fundamental framework, if you take a look at how would this work for you, how would these principles work for you in your own particular situation, I think you may get an idea or 2 about how to approach the situation. We start with the people. The first principle in negotiation has nothing to do with influencing the other side. It has everything to do with influencing ourselves. Human beings are reaction machines. It is so easy to lose perspective in a negotiation, to lose sight of what we're trying to achieve. When angry, we make the best speech we will ever regret. Let me give you an example. There was a negotiation once between the state of Arizona and a very large computer company which had been hired to manage the welfare and health payments for the poor and elderly of that state. Well, 1/4 of the way through the year, half the budget on that contract had been exhausted. The state officials panicked. They took the work, they took the contract back from the company. The company was very upset. So were the state officials. They had to have a negotiation about a computer, a $50 million computer, all the hardware and software that had all the data necessary to do the work on that computer. Now that computer was worth nothing to the company. It was worth everything to the state. It would have taken them more than $50 million to recreate, not even to speak of the time involved. And yet, because of the anger on both sides, both the company and the state walked away from that negotiation. The company lost the $50 million as well as the contract. The state had a great deal of trouble to do the work. It was a lose-lose outcome. Now, the way to avoid such outcomes, such disasters, the way that successful negotiators use is not to react in a situation, but rather to go to the balcony, to go to a place above the negotiation, almost imagining that negotiation takes place here on a stage. They go to a place above the negotiation where they can get some perspective on the negotiation. They can remember what the prize is. They can keep themselves focused on what they want in that negotiation, an agreement that works for both sides. Let's go to that balcony. Here we are on the balcony, getting some perspective on the negotiation, keeping our eyes focused on what is it that we want to get out of this negotiation. We go to the balcony before the negotiation, when we prepare for that negotiation. Preparation is key. We ought to prepare a minute for every minute that we spend talking with the other side. We go to the balcony during the negotiation, constantly. When the other side says something that makes us react, that gets us angry, we pause for a moment. We don't reply yet. As Thomas Jefferson once said, when angry, count to 10. If very angry, 100. You focus on what is it that you want to achieve out of that negotiation. We go to the balcony when we take a coffee break, and we talk with our teammates about how best to readjust our strategy. And then we go to the balcony after the negotiation ends to talk about what worked, what didn't work, what should we do differently next time. Learning is key in negotiation. It's so easy in a negotiation to lose perspective, to lose sight of what we want. The key is to be able to go to the balcony, to be able to get that mental perspective. That's why going to the balcony is the foundation for a successful negotiation. If the first principle of this method is to go to the balcony, the second is to step to the other side. It's to put yourself in their shoes. If someone were to ask me, what is the single most important skill that a negotiator needs to have, it's this ability to put yourself in the other side's shoes and see the world the way they see it. Negotiation, after all, is an exercise in influence. You're trying to change someone else's mind. You need to start, therefore, from where their mind is, not from where yours is. I remember my uncle once coming to visit me at Harvard. It was his 25th alumni reunion. And at one point, he took me aside and he said, you know, Bill, it's taken me 25 years to unlearn what I learned at Harvard Law School. He said, what I learned at Harvard Law School is that all that counts in life are the facts. Who's right and who's wrong.